This program is a paid commercial announcement and in no way represents the views of WPHT or its management.
Now on Talk Radio 1210, WPHT, WPHT, HD, WOGL, HD3, Philadelphia. Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
If we don't move in our own direction, we're going to become extinct. In fact, in some cases, we're close to being extinct right now.
Presented by Weinerman Pain and Wellness, serious doctors for serious injuries, and powered by the law offices of Pond, Lehocky, Stern, Giordano. Talk, listen, and speak to the region's most influential leaders. It's Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
Labor, statues, protests, patriotism, racism, and everything in between. This is Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. This is a talk show tonight, a series on race in America. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. We broadcast you live on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Right into the conversation we go. And before we do that, let me first introduce to you in the studio our two guests who are here. One, of course, is my co-host, J. Doc. But first, let me introduce Malik Boyd, who's sitting in the big chair tonight and joining us for this special series on race. Malik, welcome in.
Thank you, Joe. It's a pleasure being here, man. I'm looking forward to dissecting the issues with my brother, Joe Doc.
All right.
And I think this is the opportune time to do so.
All right, we're going to spend the next hour on the big show tonight dealing with a lot of hard-hitting topics that are going to hit some feelings and going to hit some individuals, but then the end result of it all is to find solutions. And J-Doc, first I give you the form for a 30-second welcome and a 30-second introduction for you.
Joe, based on recent events and situations in our country, down south and in Philadelphia with the statue situation in the NFL with Colin Kaepernick and the protests, it's become apparent that the racial divide in America, even though we've made a ton of progress, is still as great as ever in my lifetime. And we felt like it was time to lay it all out there, talk about the real issues and come up with some common ground here. Maybe start the healing process.
All right, we'll do that before we get into it and before we start to welcome your conversation. 855-839-1210. 855-839-1210. We welcome the audience into the dialogue and into the conversation tonight. 855-839-1210. Coming up at 7:16 tonight, Mike Kern from the Daily News will be with us. Later on, bottom of the hour, 7:35, Super Bowl champion, former NFL player Raheem Brock will join us as well. And we'll welcome in the entire audience listening in to the big show tonight, 855-839-1210. Malik, let me begin with you, and let me start with the question.
Yep.
Does race really matter?
Absolutely. I mean, so we talked about this, Joe, leading into the show. There are those individuals that would like to address the social construct of race and say, look, this thing has been manufactured. We all come from, one line and lineage, and we should enjoy, the relationships in that way. But the fact of the matter is, race does matter, right? So my experience as a black man in America is totally different than your experience, Joe, as a white man in America. And until we actually recognize it, until it's actually respected, and the issues that separate our experience and our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness are addressed, we'll always have these issues. So yes, race does matter.
Absolutely. And let me just say this, as a labor show, you may be thinking to yourself, is this the right place to talk about it? I can't think of a better place to talk about it. What's more diverse than the workplace? What's more diverse than the labor community in Philadelphia? Certainly, like I said in the intro, based on recent issues that we didn't even see coming. A statue, right? I mean, a statue. the national anthem at the football game that's been going on for years, right? Our society has been turned upside down. We didn't even see it coming, and that has made it evident to me that you know what? Even though America's come a long way, we're not where we need to be.
So here's the thing. I mean, we say it's on its way, right? Or we didn't see these things coming. As a black man, as an African American in this country, we've always seen it coming because it's been going on, right? So the Edmund Pettus Bridge, that was just 50 years ago. There are people still alive who actually experience that particular walk. And so for us to blanket this with marketing and say, you know, America the Great and Beautiful without addressing some of those challenges that exist is a little disingenuous, and that's why we're here.
Malik, let me ask you a question. In your opening statement, when answering the question, does race really matter, you referenced the word recognize. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think you have to acknowledge that it exists. I mean, on social media, even in conversations to this day, people just say, hey, pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you go be strong. Well, haven't we done that for 400 years? That White House was built by African Americans. We've proven our space in America. And so it's not about being strong. It's about what is equitable and fair as it relates to how we heal.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, one of the things that is important to me is that how we see the same issues, you know, and I'm going to say it right out. White people and black people will be looking at the same issue and have a different perspective. And I think, you know, these recent issues really impacted me big time. And so certainly.
Big time in what way, J-Doc?
You know, there's somebody once said the NFL owns a day of the week, right? I could see it last year. As soon as Colin Kaepernick sat down, I thought, you know what? The NFL might not own a day of the week much longer. And you could see the ripple effects coming. And I just think that based on life's experience, between, you know, African Americans, Caucasians, American Indians, Hispanics, and so on. We're going to see, and the show's called in black and white. But the fact of the matter is that nothing is really that simple. Nothing is really in black and white, and yet everything is.
What do you think as we bring this show into the forefront of the Delaware Valley today? We'll take your calls at 855-839-1210, 855-839-1210. Malik, I want to ask you, I want to stay on the word, and I want you to drill down for me if you can. Recognize. What do you mean by recognize? I'm a white American. You're a black American. What do you want me as a white man to recognize?
So, for example, if there's an anti-Semitic statement made, there's every group that is pro-Israel that will come out of the woodworks to ensure that you understand that what you said was out of pocket as it relates to the race and the culture, right? But when Colin Kaepernick takes a knee and says, my people are being killed constantly, and what you're doing is wiping over it, and you're going back 15 years into the, a rap sheet that really didn't exist and was pushed away as a minor, but you're going to pit this individual as a criminal just because we're going to skip over the current fact that they were killed, and all of us agree there are some cases that were unjust. We've got to be honest about it, right? That's not recognizing it. That's covering it up. And so when Colin took the knee, again, rather than addressing police brutality, we made it about the flag. We made it about patriotism. He's saying, my people are dying.
Okay, and that's an example of what I was just talking about. So I'll be honest, when I saw Colin Kaepernick taking the knee, I was PO'd, man. And I was PO'd because the first thing I thought was, it's an insult to the military, black, white, Hispanic, American Indian, all races, all creeds have fought and died for that national anthem to be sung. And I thought to myself, well, and a lot of African Americans have died in our wars, and I thought that was an insult to those individuals and their memory. And so that's what I was looking at. I thought that maybe, certainly he had he's got a platform, and he's got obviously a great point.
Well, what's the point?
Well, I mean, he's sitting there saying that the police, individuals did not pay for that killed African American individuals and got away with it, and he was trying to say they're being unjustly killed across America, and there's been no recognition. Maybe that's the case in certain, but I can tell you this. It was my feeling at the time that the national anthem before a football game wasn't the platform to use to bring that point to light.
So Jay, I love you on this, and this is part of the unique parts that need to be brought out in the show. It's hard for you to understand it because when he's bringing it out and we talk about platforms, what other platform should an African American use when the halls of justice don't work? So if you're able to get away with it, right, and then you're telling us, hey, but you know what, you can't even speak on the field that you run up and down every day and make me money with, where else do we talk about this? So my father was the original Colin Kaepernick, okay? My father was a Vietnam vet that came home and said, wow, they're not taking care of us. He was in that select group that when they came home, they walked the streets and they were like, great that you served your country. However, because you're black, you won't get the same benefits and the same things that the white enlisted service officers got. So he was the one, he was the, like, I saw this as a kid. He would sit down for the anthem and he had valid reasons watching his peers die from Agent Orange and not getting treatment. I mean, so when we talk about where, it's not where, it's everywhere that we should talk about this, and when is right now. We've got to have these conversations, but you'll never be able to understand it because a Caucasian, and let's really take this to heart. When's the last time that you saw five Caucasians stretched naked against the wall? Okay? Like what we saw during the Rizzo era. So think about what African Americans deal with. You don't see white men who are going through mentally challenged states. Even when they're holding submachine guns at officers, they're being taken down in a nice way. They're being tased and then brought into the police precinct and processed, right? I mean, and their mugshot says, "Hey, you know, you were just a lone shark." Meanwhile, a social service worker who's protecting a child who has mental, issues, he gets shot with his hands up, right? And then they actually pitch him as, this guy that was unruly and didn't listen.
Who's they? What do you mean they?
This is the officers, right? And this is what they said as they shot the man as he sat on his behind with his hands up. So when we can't obey the law and get justice, when we stand up for ourselves, we can't get justice. Where else does this happen?
Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. In studio, Malik Boyd, J-Doc, Joe Dougherty joining us. I'm Krausey on a Saturday night. We'll go to our first commercial break. We open the phone lines for you, 855-839-1210, 855-839-1210. When we come back, we continue the conversation on taking a knee. Mike Kern from the Daily News will weigh in later on. Raheem Brock. This is Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. This is a talk show series on race in America.
Obviously, race is the elephant in the room, and we all understand that. But unless it is talked about constantly, it's not going to get better. People get bored. Oh, is it that again? They pull in a race card again. Why do we have to talk about that? Well, because it's uncomfortable.
This is Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Welcome back into the show. It's a special series, a talk show series tonight on race in America in black and white, along with Malik Boyd in the studio and J-Doc in the studio as well. Our telephone numbers, 855-839-1210. We want you to weigh into the show. If you're holding, I promise we will get to as many calls as we can. 855-839-1210. Bottom of the hour, Malik, 8:35. Raheem Brock is going to join us, and we're also going to get into a subject line or a topic that's titled "Get Under My Skin." Yeah. I'll have you explain that for listeners.
So the whole concept of "Get Under My Skin" is real simple. Look, ask us anything. Call in. Whatever it is that you're afraid to ask a black man, ask me tonight. Whatever you're afraid to ask a white man, ask Joe tonight. But we're going to address some of these stereotypes. We're going to get them out the way. We're also going to address some of these hot topics and get them out the way, because the goal is not for you to get under my skin in a cantankerous or a very angry way, but get under my skin and get to the heart of the issue. That's the point.
Let's bring in Mike Kern from the Daily News, who's joining us here tonight on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Michael, welcome into the conversation. It's a special conversation tonight. In Black and White, a talk show series on race in America. I appreciate you coming on board. You and I, of course, on many different radio programs throughout the last 4 months, have had many conversations about the NFL and taking a knee. I asked you to come on and join the big show tonight. I give you that opportunity to join us with your thoughts and with your opinion. Hello, Michael.
Yeah, you don't have a long enough show, pal.
I know that.
All right. Mike, let's take it back really quickly to the beginning when Colin Kaepernick started taking a knee. What was your immediate impression, number one? And did you think that there would be bigger ripple effects than just that particular game?
I honestly didn't know. I mean, something like that happens. I kind of didn't know what to make of it because, quite honestly, I probably should have figured that it would become a big deal because it was a black and white deal. And everything that we deal, or most things that we deal with in the world, whether it's in sports, not in sports, whatever, every day, let's go along racial lines. It doesn't always have to be black and white. It can be Spanish in something. It can be Asians. It's just we are so divided as a country and as a maybe not a world so much. But I'll confine it to the country. But anybody who thinks that we don't have issues, serious issues, not issues, and nobody, I agree, nobody wants to have conversations about it because it makes you feel uncomfortable. And there's a lack of trust on both sides. There's a portion of white America, maybe I don't know, who don't trust black America and vice versa. And I think it's part of the reason why Donald Trump got elected, quite honestly, because I think there was a certain portion of the country that wanted to take their country back, quote unquote, I don't know where it goes, but 50 years after the civil rights movement, look where we're at. And I'm not a black man, so I can't put myself in a black man's position. I've never been stopped for driving black. I've never been, but look at the world we're in. Cam Newton says something this week that, wasn't right.
Yeah.
Okay. And the first thing I heard the next day or later that day, well, what if a white guy had said it? That's one of the first things that came out. What if Tom Brady had said that? Would the backlash, it immediately goes to black and white. Would the backlash have been as bad if Tom Brady did it? Antonio Brown does something on the sidelines. Odell Beckham does something. Look at those guys. It's all about them. It's me. In other words, it's a black guy. That's, kind of what they're saying because the inference is that white guys don't do that.
So it's interesting, Mike. It's not even kind of like what they're saying. That is exactly, what they're saying. Well, it's
veiled, but it's not veiled. I mean, there's catchphrases and everything. But I just think that a lot of white people, and listen, we're all guilty to some degree of being prejudiced.
Agreed.
I can sit here and say I'm not a prejudiced person. I'll guarantee you there's been times in my life where I've made a judgment or done something and then said, oh, did I really do that? Or did I? And I hung around. I had the privilege of hanging around John Chaney for most of my professional career, who taught me more about black and white than probably any person that I could have learned from. And I remember John Chaney telling me years ago, and he said, I think it was when the Republicans were having a convention. I don't know if it was 5 years ago. And he said, they asked what we were going to do with the poor people, meaning black people. And people got up and said, oh, nobody cares, whatever. And they got a standing ovation. Is John wrong? Is that not – and I'm not painting – you can't paint a broad brush and say everybody because it's not everybody. But I just think that, if I go walking in North Philly, am I going to feel uncomfortable?
That's a
Probably. If a black person comes up to my neighborhood and walks around, is he going to maybe feel out of place? Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. And I don't know how we fix that. I don't – and sports are so visible that we see it in sports. And then but it's much. This is a much larger issue than sports. Trust me,
Mike. And it's a very interesting point you make. I was in an African American nightlife business, I owned a nightclub, and felt as comfortable in that environment as I do in my own living room. And Malik and I go back 15, 20 years. However, if I go get gas in a certain part of my neighborhood at the wrong night, at a specific time of a night or whatever, and there's groups of whites and blacks, and I'm walking in and I'm getting stared down. I mean, I know there's an issue there, and it really does interest me in what I symbolize and why I must symbolize that. And it does bug me. I'm not taking it personal because like you just said, Mike, the same thing would happen in a white neighborhood. And when we were younger in the 70s, it was obviously at epidemic portions.
But here's the difference. So you may feel uncomfortable in, that particular segment, just like I may feel uncomfortable being in your neighborhood, right? So Krausey, I come to your neighborhood, I feel uncomfortable. The difference is I run the chance of losing my life by an officer of the law. So I really want us to take this into consideration. When you go into a Wawa in the hood or in my neighborhood, you get the chance to call the law, and they'll come probably quicker because it's Joe. In the other neighborhood, they'll ask, "Why am I here?"
Well, but let me just say one thing.
But does that make it? But wait a minute. Does that
Go ahead,
make
Mike.
it right that I might fear? And I'm not saying I do. But if I might fear for my life because of the neighborhood, forget the cops. Forget the fact that I could call a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
And I get where you're going. But if I go into a place in a black neighborhood and walk out and there's 10 guys looking at me the wrong way, should I feel better because I can call 911?
So absolutely. So here's the thing. I'm with you on that. I think the fact that there's a criminal element who is preying on you, that should be addressed. However,
but they might not be a criminal element.
Whatever it may be. Whatever.
I might look at them and stereotype them as a criminal element.
That I'm even more excited that you said that you could potentially stereotype them just as we could stereotype you. However, what I'm saying is the officer is the counterbalance. The officer is the point by which humans, not just black or white, but humans should be able to feel comfortable when they are present.
Now, let me just jump
Mike, what was interesting? When the whole OJ thing went down, and then they did all these documentaries and stuff, and they were showing you how L.A., in the 25 or 30 or 40 years before OJ, all the things that had happened, innocent people getting shot, people getting off. And I'm sitting there going, man, I can understand how the African Americans would react. It doesn't make it – see, to me, like when they cheered the OJ verdict, I was upset that they were cheering because I thought a guilty man got off. But I understood why they were cheering because it was, hey, about time one of us. But when I saw all that stuff that happened in L.A., I'm thinking, like, my God, how can they exist with the police? But then I guess if you look at it from a police standpoint, they'll have the exact opposite and say, well, look at those people. If we don't act like that. And that's what I'm saying in this country. How do we get past that when it's been festering for 50 or 60 or 70 years?
So Mike, I think you bring up a good point when you talk about L.A., right? So when we talk about the issue of the riot, we watched Rodney King get beat down in such a way that it was, it's unfathomable that you can beat a black man or any man in that way, right? And then they tried to criminalize him. So when we see that and they keep replaying it, right? Unlike Vegas, where they hid Stephen Braddock's photo to the very end, they played they play Rodney King over and over and over again.
But what I'm saying is, but let's go back to that. And I don't mean to be bringing this stuff up from 25 years ago, but
sure,
there are police and there are white who would tell you that if you saw the whole video, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, if you saw the whole video, it was a man who was out of control, who was on drugs, who they tried to subdue and couldn't subdue. Now, I'm not saying I saw the video you did too. It seems to me cruel, but what I'm saying is if I'm a police officer, did I fear for my life? I can't put myself in the police officers. I've seen photos from New York where they shot that guy.
50 times. 50 times.
Photo from, was it Minnesota or somewhere where the guy got out of his car?
Oh, yeah.
I can't put myself in the police officer's head either. And I'm not justifying it. I don't mean to do that. I'm just saying is when there's a distrust on both sides, and I know the police officer has the benefit of having the gun. Well, sometimes the other guys have the guns too, but and I get it. And when I see the O.J. Simpson thing now in retrospect, I understand why they reacted like that. I didn't agree with it. I thought it would, but it just seemed to me it was like, we're cheering for the wrong thing, but I get it. I get why you would feel disenfranchised and all that. And I just don't know how we get past that. I just don't know, like, where do we start to try to get past that?
Mike Kern from the Daily News weighing in tonight on our special show, a talk show series on race in America. This is Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Michael, well done. Thank you, sir. Well stated. Appreciate you joining the program. If you're on the line, stay with us. We'll get to our calls when we come back after the break. 855-839-1210. 855-839-1210. This is Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor.
Oh, but the NFL players did stand in the United Kingdom for the British anthem, God Save the Queen. Yes, they showed more respect for the anthem of the nation that once tyrannized us than for the nation which plucked many of them from poverty and propelled them to be multi-millionaire celebrity athletes. Think about that one for a second.
This is Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT, a talk show series on race in America. We bring you the show tonight here on Talk Radio 1210. Labor, statues, protest, patriotism, racism, and everything in between. John checking in on the hotline. We bring John into the dialogue, and we welcome him in to the conversation. John, thanks for holding on. Welcome in to Saturday Night Live.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, sir. How you doing?
I'm okay. Let me just pull over here. I've been on the road for a couple hours.
Yep, do that. Be safe.
Okay. Okay, I don't know how much support I'm going to get on this belief. I certainly don't get much on the web when I type about this. But in my opinion, the best way to bring races and cultures closer together is to raise them from birth in economic classes that are within some type of reasonable reach of each other. And over the last 30 or 40 years, we've been concentrating wealth by individual, by region, and inevitably by race. And because of that, people who ended up on the bad end of the deal primarily were blacks and Hispanics. They were already at a disadvantage 30 or 40 years ago, but they were catching up. Blacks in particular were beginning to catch up. That progress was reversed. And here's where I lose a lot of people on the web.
How would you do that?
It does not matter. How would we do what? What do you mean?
In other words, how would you raise, in other words, in our system, in our economic system, how would you raise any group of people, and based on, in other words, that's socio-economical.
Well, that's I think so. First of all, I'm like super excited that he called in and brought this point up, because I would be one of those guys on Facebook that would absolutely agree with you. So the wealth gap is increasing as it relates to black families and white families, right? However, by 2040, it's being reported now by the Brookings Institute that whites will be a minority in this country. So how is the population decreasing but the wealth increasing? It relates to how we fund businesses in commercial corridors. We have things like the EB-5 program, which will allow foreign investment to come into underserved communities, right? And they get tax breaks and all kinds of tax credits, but the individuals who are in the community have a hard time getting loans, microloans from banks. It's how do you open up access?
The gap between
to the resources.
The wealthy and the middle class has expanded substantially. And the rich get richer and the poor get poor. It's not just a white and black thing. That's a social class thing as well. No, in other words, that's based on a lot on to do with.
Well, it's white and black too, because the social class happens to be white.
John, thanks for the call. Let's get some more callers. And Steve checking in with us from Philadelphia. Steve, welcome in to Saturday Night Live, a special tonight in black and white. Steve, welcome to the program.
Yeah, hi. Now, I was driving, and I only heard part of the program. So, maybe I didn't hear what the whole conversation was about. But, basically, I hear that there's a black guy talking on the radio, and he's saying that that there's a problem with police targeting black men, right? Is this basically the gist of what he was saying?
So that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that they're targeting, that they go out and roll call and say, hey, you know what, let's get 5 black guys today. But as we look at the justice system, how African Americans are processed through the system, and how we deal with issues of crime, that African Americans come up with the short end of the stick.
Oh, you think that African Americans just come up with the short end of the stick? Now, I mean,
you do know that's statistically correct, right?
Well, no, you're actually wrong about that. Okay, because I looked on the internet when I was home. Okay, yeah, this is a couple days ago. Okay, and I'm driving right now, so I'm on a cell phone. But okay, how many blacks do you think that cops killed last year? Shot?
Are you talking country? Are you talking region? What are you talking? And where are you pulling the source from?
In the United States, how many black people do you think that police officers shot in the past year?
So that particular number.
How many?
Hold on. Time out. Because when I talk about the short end of the stick, I do not talk about murders and killings. What we talk about is treatment and mistreatment of the African American.
Well, what's the answer? Let's get the answer. What's the answer to the question, Steve?
It's about 300. It turns out, okay. Now this is from my memory. I'm not at home in front of the computer now.
And what's the source that we're pulling from?
But there were actually more whites that were shot by police than blacks. Okay, that's number one. Okay, number two. Okay, the majority of black men that are shot by other blacks. Okay, and number three, most of the crime. Okay, statistically, a white person is far more likely to get harmed by a black than vice versa. I mean, it's all nonsense. It's a bunch of media nonsense.
Steve, hold on.
I can break that down in like.
You know who runs the media? It's nonsense, man.
I'd love to process that. So here, let me address that really, really quickly, right?
My ethnic group happens to run some of these major, CNN and some of the other companies.
I hear
my
you.
ethnic group.
I hear
you. Understand what I'm saying?
So what is your ethnic group? Let me ask that.
I'm not going to go into that.
Okay, so let me just pick this apart, okay? So there are more blacks in jails than whites. Do we agree with that? That's fact.
Yeah, but blacks have a higher
Time out. First of all, we do not have a higher crime rate than whites. What is known is that blacks will commit crimes against other blacks. White will commit crimes against other whites. That's by proximity. What we do know is when we're processed, how we are processed under the law, the sentencing guidelines and how they occur are disproportionate to African Americans. That is the short end of the stick. You don't have to lose your life by a bullet to lose your life in a jail cell. That is what occurs. You don't have to lose the quality of life when you get 10 years for stealing a bag of chips. Meanwhile, a Caucasian man can rape someone and get 5 years. That's proven.
Wait, I mean, hold on here, guys.
I haven't heard. So you're saying that there are examples where a black man got 10 years for stealing a bag of chips?
Stealing chips.
Yeah,
hold on. Time out.
Hold on. We're getting way off. We're getting way off the point.
Time out. That is the point. And here's the great.
One to speak up about that,
here's the. And I'm glad that you did, because here's the great uncomfortable point. When we start talking about sentencing guidelines, when we start talking about mistreatment and how it occurs, it is beyond the deaths. If we just take a look at the shootings, then we would only have minute issues. We have to take a look at the culture of policing, and that's the whole totality.
All right, let's move on.
I don't know. I mean, there might be issues that I don't know about, but I look at the statistics and, I know what's going on. And, I think that sometimes people, I mean, I don't know if it comes from the media. I don't know where people get these ideas from, but, I don't believe that white cops are going out and targeting black men. And, I don't think the statistics actually bear that out.
Steve from Philly checking in. Thanks for the call. We got to move on. Todd from up in Hazleton joining us. We'll get to Ralph in a moment. We also have a break coming up, but we go rapid fire. Todd joining us on Saturday. Todd Eches, former House Majority Leader, joining us here tonight on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Todd, a good Saturday evening, sir. Welcome into the dialogue.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Malik, my brother, you can't argue with ignorance. So when you see it, you just got to call it out. And the prejudice, the prejudgment of the last caller about statistics, about opinions, about what he felt about his own prejudice guided his thoughts. So we all saw it, right? So let's just call it out. I'm a white guy. You're a black guy. who cares, right? So,
yeah, but Todd, I also appreciated his call because I think we have to allow everybody's voice to come.
Yeah, but for the white community out there, or my white friends, along with your listeners, no one's buying that view. I think that's a small minority of and we have mostly good people trying to do good things in the world. So, hey, I was in L.A. During the riots. I was a student in college. My brother, Michael, my brother-in-law, Michael, my wife's brother, was a 20-year man in the LAPD in the force at the time. So I have an interesting perspective.
Todd, thanks for the call, Todd. And let me just say something about this whole situation, okay? First of all, this is this show isn't about just about crime, but it's a big part of things. No question about it. It's also about understanding one another. And let me just say this: I find it amazing that Kern,
Mike Kern from the Daily News
brought up the O.J. Simpson situation. So that was obviously a racial divide of epic proportions. But let me just say one thing about that. Of course, you asked me personally. I mean, I would bet my life that he was guilty. But let me just say something. You saw the racial divide, okay? And let me tell you something. I see people today, say a white guy or a white woman or whatever says that O.J. Simpson's guilty. That's blah blah blah, son of a whatever. But let me tell you something. You know how many people are in jail right now because they didn't have the economic ability to pay for an attorney so they could fight their crime? Well, wait a minute. If you're going to cry about O.J. Simpson and you're going to do it 10 years later, buying his defense and all that, you better cry just as much for those individuals who cannot afford to defend themselves.
Well, and the culture of policing in the LAPD at the time, you remember now, the same bad cops who were involved in the LA, O.J. Simpson stuff, those are the same dirty cops that were running down women inside the force and then shutting out any men, white, black, or otherwise, who dealt with professional women inside the LAPD. So these are dirty people with dirty thoughts. Exerting
let me say this,
bad examples for everybody.
I wouldn't say that about all cops. What I'm saying is you're going to get bad, and look, and this is where the black and white issue is different. In other words, your opinions are going to be based on your experiences. I'm not going to stereotype police by any means. Let
me make sure I'm clear about what I'm saying. So
we're going to break, so be quick.
My brother, 20-year man, told me there was a white-dominated, male-dominated society inside the LAPD in the 80s, the 70s and 80s. It was bad, and it got changed by, clean air and public scrutiny. And so, it's better now than it ever has been, and America's policing is better because we know the bad, we squeeze out the bad actors, I hope.
This is Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210, a talk show series tonight on Race in America. Back in a moment. And welcome back, everyone, to Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. A special series tonight on Race in America, in black and white. Special presentation tonight on Talk Radio 1210. This is Saturday Night Live with PhillyLabor. To the phones we go. Ralph has been waiting on. Ralph, we're going to go rapid fire, but we'll bring you in to make your point, and then we're going to move through it, okay?
The encounter with the police and black is always case on black criminality, and in South, black criminality in this country is fine. Okay, so unless there's a case where.
Let's do this. Let's put Ralph on hold. I apologize, but we're having trouble hearing him. Let's see if we can get him back. Doug, meanwhile, we'll bring Doug into the conversation and welcome him into our show tonight on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT in black and white. Doug, welcome in. All right, let's get rid of that. We expected to get a little bit of that tonight on Saturday Night Live with Talk Radio 1210. Don't forget, coming up at 8 o'clock tonight, the Dan Loney Show will roll into the night, 8 to 11. A personal experience from Dan Loney tonight. Stay tuned as we roll to the top of the hour. Go ahead, Jay.
So I want to make something clear, and I was talking about it during the break. Everybody's had their own personal, different. Your opinions is based on your own personal experiences. And so I happen to support, the police in general. When someone's breaking in your house, you don't call your neighbor, you call the police. However, everybody knows that in life, you're going to have your bad eggs. I don't care what career you're in. So, but don't get me wrong, and I'm not. And
I have idiots like that guy that just waited on hold for almost 19 minutes to get in there for 3 seconds.
Yeah, but my point is this: I'm not downgrading at all the black experience in the community with police officers and the things that have happened. But let's face it, if you're in a situation where you have a relative that's a police officer, if you've had good experiences, whether you're black or white, you may not share that experience. However, say I'm a white guy and I've not had them experiences. Well, as a black man, one of the things I'd like to say is, okay, if you've had them experiences, and obviously I saw the Rodney King thing, I can't believe there's a good part to that particular video that would make me change my opinion. But there has to be a dialogue going back and forth, and protesting is important, no questions asked. But there also has to be a call to action and a dialogue. So that, yes, as a white man, I want to understand, you as a black man, but I want you to understand me as well. And that maybe I might be ignorant to some things that you've experienced, but it's not because I'm ignorant in general.
Oh, I get you. And so, first, let me say I respect you and respect your experience. And I want to get to know your experience. I want to live long enough to be able to do so. That's the issue. And the African American community, we're talking about how do we have a quality of life that gets us to a point where we can actually sit down and have a dialogue. Right now, we're still in survival mode. And survival mode in a couple of different fronts, economically and as it relates to quality of life and policing. So what we're saying is, let's address those issues first, then we can sit down and have a conversation. But right now, if we're not addressing the fact that African Americans are disproportionately affected by the system, then we can't move forward. Because if the system is chewing up my people, how do we have a conversation about understanding?
Let's bring Jacqueline in from Virginia, weighing in on the show tonight here on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT in black and white. Jacqueline, welcome to the program.
Hi, thank you. Yes. Okay. So I'm sorry. Yes. The point that I wanted to make is I listen to a lot of different talk shows. I'm a 54-year-old black female. Okay. I was raised Air Force brat. Okay. So I've always been in a multicultural environment. I am a professional. But and I have been doing research on, my community, my culture, my black race, okay? And what I don't like is, they're not bringing forth the fact that we all, I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. We all know that the ghetto situation is negative, okay? We know the economics, the mindset. I live in the ghetto. The only way I can make it is sell drugs or whatever. Okay, but the young black men who are, quote, doing all this killing or whatever, shooting, which we hear on the news, they're not going over to the middle class black neighborhood killing black people. They're killing people within their own area. It's like they're all in the cesspools in those areas.
So it's a social class issue as much as it's.
If you have people full of this negative mentality and they don't even like themselves, they don't even think they can succeed, not a proper way. Of course they're going to behave, unfortunately like that. There's really no excuse, though. I mean, we know that some of them are not having both mom and dad in the house. We know those are all factors, but overall...
Malik, Jacqueline, hold on, just because we're up against the top of the hour. First, thanks for calling. Malik, let me get you to weigh in, and then J-Doc, I'll have you respond if you can as well. Jacqueline, thanks for the call. I appreciate it very much. Go ahead, Malik.
So here's the first thing. Pragmatically, I'm going to assume that Jacqueline was not saying that the hood or the ghetto, or everybody in there is doing crime, right? However, that still does not address the fact that there are individuals inside that of that neighborhood that you're speaking of that need resources and should not be treated in various ways that are discriminatory. And even the criminal element gets treated discriminatory if you take it in the case of how you treat North Philly versus how you treat
J-Doc,
another area.
You say what?
No, I say that certainly. A lot of it's not just a black and white issue. Certainly stereotypes are involved. A lot of it is a social question.
Well, this show's a black and white issue.
But my point is this. When you talk about crime and we talk about if you're afraid in one particular neighborhood, well, it depends what white neighborhood you're in or what black neighborhood you're in. So if you're in an upper-class black neighborhood, you're not walking around afraid. If you're in an upper-class white neighborhood, same thing. If you're at K&A and it's, and you're black or white, and you may feel the same way if you're in the heart of North Philly in a particular area. So
just 60 seconds. seconds left in the program. Malik, I'll give you the first 30 seconds. J-Doc, I'll come back for you. Watch my cues, please.
I'll make my story real quick. I'm up in Southampton Road pumping a candidate. I go to a door. A 80-year-old woman comes out with a bathrobe. I back up because I'm fully dressed with a suit and an overcoat. I give her the literature. She says to me, "Oh my gosh, I know her. She went to school with my granddaughter. You should vote for her too because she will be good for your kind."
J-Doc, 25 seconds.
Now, listen, I'm proud to be a part of this show. I think that Mike Kern was right. We need more time. I think it's important for us to understand each other's experiences. And by the way, this is a labor show, and there's no more prevalent place where race is an issue than in the workplace. We're going to have plenty of time to discuss that next month.
This is Saturday Night Live with Philly Labor on Talk Radio 1210 WPHT. Dan Loney is up next.
I seen that open space. I hope you're saving that for medical marijuana because I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of that, and I just want to let you know we're talking big numbers. We're talking, as you know, they're talking trillions, but we're talking mucho billions around here of unionized pension money. I haven't heard in 6 weeks one conversation about Russia yet. That's the reality. They come to me about jobs. They come to me a little bit about Obamacare, but they don't come to me about Russia. And with Philadelphia jumping out of the seams as a hospitality town, we need our transportation to be clean, efficient, safe, and on time.
This program is a paid commercial announcement and in no way represents the views of WPHT or its management.